Okay, I'm gonna start. All right, what's up, internet? What's up, world? This is the Blockchainers, Cian,
Young-hun,
and we're propagating straight from the heart of Korea, trying to tell the world and the internet everything that is going on in the blockchain crypto ecosystem here in Korea, bringing you news, interviews, general goodness, and all that good Korean soul. Today on our the Blockchainer show, we got our very special guest. Yeah, Mr. Charlie Lee, creator of Litecoin, aka Satoshi Light. Welcome, Charlie.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you for coming despite all your busy schedule.
Yeah, sorry about missing last time. The time zone difference. I got it wrong by a day, so.
That's okay. That's okay. All right. Yeah. Please say hi to Korea.
Hey, Korea.
All right. Then we'll dive right in. We got a couple of questions, but we'll try to hit all the ones that are important. Yeah. So people actually, this is just something that people wanted me to tell you. I know like people have a love-hate relationship with your tweets, but many Koreans have actually told me in person that they really appreciate your honest, no bullshit attitude. Did you expect your tweet about Chinese exchanges to get that much attention? And who's responsible for the price drop? Is it you or Jamie Dimon?
I don't know actually. I think a bit of both. Well, I didn't expect it to really affect the price that much, but then I guess I should have expected it. Yeah, I just never know what affects price and what doesn't. Like sometimes I mention something I feel to be very like groundbreaking, nothing happens to your price. And sometimes I mention something that really was just a silly joke, and then all of a sudden the price drops or it goes up.
Yes, sir. I mean, we definitely like knew from that you were an influencer. So like how did you create Litecoin? What was your inspiration for it?
I was playing around with Bitcoin, Coinbase, and just wanted to create something better than what's out there, like all the other altcoins out there at the time. And I also wanted to create, I saw Bitcoin as digital gold, and I wanted to create a digital silver, like silver to Bitcoin's gold. So I just created Litecoin. You know, just made it faster, having more transaction throughput, and it will be cheaper, fees will be cheaper, and figured that could be a good complement to Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I know like you weren't focused on it. Oh shit. Yeah, I know you weren't focused on it like 100% at the very beginning, but what changed? Like what's different now that you're focused on it better than before?
Well, initially, I joined Coinbase in 2013. I figured that in order I was first a Bitcoiner before I created Litecoin. So I always believed in Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin didn't succeed, Litecoin wouldn't go anywhere, right? It's not that I think Litecoin could overtake Bitcoin, become the #1 cryptocurrency. I always saw both of them working together. So I figured joining Coinbase and helping Coinbase make Bitcoin easy to use would be more beneficial to make both Bitcoin and Litecoin successful. So that's what I did. Joined Coinbase, worked there for about 4 years, was director of engineering, and really helped Coinbase become what it is today. And Coinbase has helped a lot of people get into the crypto space, make it easy to buy, store, and hold Bitcoin, and now Litecoin. So I think it's good. And now that Coinbase has established itself, I figured it was time for me to jump back into like full-time working on Litecoin and try to make that a success.
Yeah. So how do you envision, like with everything that you said, it seems like you envision Bitcoin and Litecoin being like the two top dogs at the end of the day. So how do you envision like the future cryptocurrency landscape to be? Will there be a one coin that rules them all, or how it's gonna look like?
You never know what's gonna happen. Like when I created Litecoin, I didn't expect much of it. It was more like a fun project, and it just became like more and more successful and became a big deal. So I guess my vision is for multiple currencies to coexist and for people to use all of them without really having to understand the complexity behind the scene. So some like SegWit and Lightning would help, where people can send coins and convert on the fly to any other coin and not really need to understand exactly what's going on.
Yeah, but okay, it's very interesting because
Yeah.
on the one hand, you worked at Coinbase, so you worked at a pretty centralized exchange, and then now you got all this atomic swap plus Lightning Network, everything that is possibly on and off chain atomic swaps, which might give birth to like decentralized exchanges as well as a very thriving OTC environment. Like how do you, so how do you think it's gonna, like where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, centralized exchanges for crypto fiat is always going to be important. Like people have to get into the crypto space, right? They have to convert their fiat to crypto first. So they would need people or companies like Coinbase to make it really easy to get into crypto. But once you're in crypto, everything should be a lot easier, right? With smart contracts, with atomic swaps, you should be able to convert between Bitcoin and Litecoin and any other currencies like instantaneously, low fees, and quickly. So that's what I see would happen, where it will still be hard for people to convert from fiat to crypto, because there's going to be regulation, there's going to be anti-money laundering laws and know your customer stuff. But once you're in crypto, it will be very efficient and cheap to move around.
Is there any decentralized exchange projects that you're keen on, or do you just see just atomic swaps being the answer for it all?
I mean, there's a lot of decentralized exchanges projects going on right now. I don't really have any particular one that I'm really excited about, but I did actually invest in some of my personal funds in helping a friend out, and he's working on a decentralized exchange that he's working on. It will be announced soon. That could be interesting. I think in the future there's going to be a lot of decentralized exchanges, and Lightning Network would make it very useful, where if you have Litecoin on Lightning Network and Bitcoin on Lightning Network, and nodes can just advertise what their conversion rate is, and when you're routing, you can select whichever node that gives you the best rate and can handle the quantity you want. So it can all be done in a decentralized way. I'm excited for that to happen, but it's going to take some more work for the infrastructure to be fleshed out.
Okay. So if that's the case, do you envision the Lightning Network to be sort of kind of like foundation for all the decentralized exchanges to be built upon?
It would be one way to do a decentralized exchange. There's probably, I mean, there's going to be a lot of different layer 2 solutions to do this kind of stuff. So I think it's to be seen what would actually be successful and people would use.
People, so everybody is just like so excited about Lightning Exchange, or they're excited and they're envious of seeing you do Lightning Network stuff on a mainnet, as well as doing atomic swaps with other chains. When can like regular everyday users be able to use this stuff?
It's funny because the Lightning Network devs are very conservative, and rightfully so. So they make it really hard for people to actually play around with mainnet. Oh. So I had to like hack around their code to make it work for Litecoin mainnet. So and I mean, no risk, no glory, right? So risking real Litecoins just to test it out, and it was fun. But yeah, it's still early stages for Lightning networks. They're gonna be making some like backwards incompatible changes to the network, so it's not safe to keep your coins in the Lightning Network payment channel right now if they change something, and then all of a sudden like your coins might be stuck or something like that. So it's best to play with testnet coins. But they recently released like a desktop UI for it, testnet only, but it's very exciting. It's coming along.
Yeah, and just some of the wallet developments, especially with Lightning, are really exciting too. They seem very, very user friendly.
Yeah, I mean that's the hard part is the UI, right? So you want it so that people don't have to understand the technology, right? When you're sending email from one person to another person, you don't really have to understand how SMTP works, how your email gets sent, how retries are done. It just works, right? And same thing with Bitcoin and Litecoin. If you're sending it to someone, you don't really care if it's Lightning or if it's on chain. So the UI has to be simple enough where I say I want to send money to Bob, and then the backend would try to see if there's a Lightning Network connection between the two of you. If there is, it will send it through Lightning. If not, then it will be on chain, or maybe there's another third technology that does something a little bit different. So all that should be behind the scenes, where all you know is that you're trying to send money from you to Bob, and also like even it could potentially be cheaper to convert from Bitcoin to Litecoin, send an on-chain Litecoin payment, and then convert back from Litecoin to Bitcoin. Something like that could be done like for you, and you wouldn't even know that that's happening behind the scene.
Speaking of UI though, like when the way you see it, what's the one advantage, if you can name any, what's the advantage Litecoin has over Bitcoin? I mean, like every time I mean, Bitcoin, it's great. I love the devs. I love everybody that's on it. But like every time I try to use it, I feel like I'm having to learn about blockchain. Like you're teaching new users about the blockchain, about Bitcoin, as opposed to helping them use it. Will Litecoin? Do you think Litecoin will go in a like more user-friendly direction?
I mean, the advantage with Litecoin right now, it's cheaper, right? Fees are lower. There's a lot of space in the blockchain, and it's faster, right? If you actually people use Litecoin for the first time, they're like, oh my god, it's just like amazing, right? This is cheap and fast, and of course it won't stay this way if everyone uses Litecoin, right? Litecoin has the same kind of scaling constraint as Bitcoin does, or as all cryptocurrency do, right? You don't get a free lunch. You can't just scale infinitely and expect low fees, right? It's just something has to give. There has to be trade-offs to be made. But I see Litecoin working closely with Bitcoin to help cryptocurrency scale. And if I had to choose, I would say Bitcoin can focus on being a store of value. Like security and decentralization is the most important, and that's why the Bitcoin core devs are not willing to risk that, right? I think the reason why Bitcoin is so valuable today is because it's the most secure coin and it's the most decentralized. If the core devs actually risk that and just like increase on-chain capacity like 8 times, all of a sudden like people can't run nodes anymore, node count would decrease. And before you know it, like it becomes a better, like a little bit more decentralized PayPal, and it's no longer like the store of value that can compete against gold and all those other asset classes, right? So if Bitcoin focus on that, Litecoin will focus on being more for like a payment coin, more for cheaper transaction fees for purchasing goods. So that's the direction I kind of see it going. But we'll see what happens with Lightning Network and how Bitcoin can also tackle the payment space, or whether or not there is how Litecoin can help.
Yeah. When you say decentralization, you could say like dev decentralization, miner decentralization, different types of decentralization. Where is the crux of decentralization for you?
I think it's for me, what's most important is nodes decentralization. So, like Bitcoin, like development for Bitcoin cannot like really go anywhere, and Bitcoin will still be successful, right? Like as is, like what Satoshi Nakamoto created was already an amazing like product. Like devs could just be fixing bugs and not adding new features, and it's still going to be like $1 trillion currency in like however many years. Miner centralization is an issue, but in the end, like it's still a pretty competitive market. It's still hard to attack Bitcoin via mining. Like if you can 51% attack it, you can reverse some transactions, but you still can steal money from people, right? And once the attack happens, people can react to it. Like if miners start attacking Bitcoin, it will be very quick for consensus to form to change proof of work and basically fire all the miners and get new miners. Or if some government entity tries to attack Bitcoin that way, it can be like changed pretty easily. So I'm not worried about miner centralization that much, but what I'm worried about is node centralization, right? So if it's really hard for anyone to run a node, then all you get is like companies like Coinbase, big companies or big miners running nodes, and everyone else will be using like SPV wallets where they can't validate themselves, but they just have to trust a third party to validate for them. And when that happens, then it becomes very easy to attack Bitcoin because all you have to do is coerce the big companies to change Bitcoin, and people can't do anything about it, right? So I think it's important that people can run nodes and can validate their own transactions if they want to. Not everyone will choose to, but once people can't afford to do that anymore, then we have a problem.
What's the, like, I know like at the very beginning when you started off Litecoin, you chose the script mining algorithm because it's better ASIC resistant than SHA-256. What's the state of Litecoin mining nowadays? Has everybody just come completely over into ASIC?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a, I guess, revisionist history to say that I chose script to be ASIC resistant, because back then when I launched Litecoin, ASIC wasn't even in the picture. Like Bitcoin ASIC mining was still a possibility. Bitcoin was GPU mined and people weren't really doing ASICs. I think FPGAs didn't even come out for Bitcoin yet. So when I chose script, the main reason is just to make it so that Litecoin, depending on a different set of miners than Bitcoin, so that it wasn't competing for miners. And because I saw that with Namecoin at that time, because it was competing with Bitcoin miners, it caused a lot of, basically what you're seeing with Bcash right now, with Bitcoin Cash, is what happened 6 years ago with Namecoin, and Bitcoin Cash didn't learn from that. So I realized it was not a good idea to compete with Bitcoin, because you're always going to be the small dog and you're going to get like whipped around. So choosing a different proof of work, making it so that when Bitcoin was GPU mineable, Litecoin was mined on a CPU, that made it so that it was possible for Litecoin to survive. And coincidentally, when Bitcoin ASICs came out, Litecoin script became GPU mineable. Someone figured out how to make it efficient to mine with the GPUs. So all the GPUs that were previously mining Bitcoin all had another coin to turn to, which was Litecoin. So that really helped Litecoin also. And I think that was just pure luck that's when it happened. And now ASICs were created for Litecoin. And it's totally fine. I mean, yes, it's more centralized mining with ASICs, but I think over time, competition would like start to happen, and there will be more decentralization. So it's not that Litecoin was ASIC resistant and now that all the ASICs are here that it failed, because I never created Litecoin to be ASIC resistant in the first place. I think a lot of people were saying that it's ASIC resistant, or ASIC, I mean, it did resist ASIC. It made ASICs like not worthwhile to create for a while, but the price went up, so it became worthwhile.
Okay, the kind of like you say, like Bitcoin Cash competing against like Bitcoin in terms of mining power, right? They kind of naturally leads to the question about like Bitcoin Gold. What do you think about Bitcoin Gold?
Bitcoin Gold is GPU mineable. Is that they're using Ethereum's proof of work?
Yeah, they're using Zcash. Zcash is
Zcash is proof of work.
Yeah, and then their whole thing is miner decentralization is what Satoshi envisioned.
I think Bitcoin Gold is another it's another airdrop, right? It's a good way to make more money. I don't like the fact that they are like doing like an ICO. They're like mining a lot of blocks themselves to make more. I don't know, to just, it's a money grab, right? You just want to make more money and then try to make it successful. And I think it's like the altcoin craze from 2013, where everyone's creating an altcoin. This year it was all about ICO. Maybe next year is all about doing hard forks and airdrops and stuff. So people just have creative ways to scam others.
Oh, what? How did your stance? I know you're a very big like no 2x guy. So do you think there will be a hard fork?
I hope not. And yeah, I mean, I think the Segwit 2x folks are. I mean, it's kind of crazy that they would try to do a hard fork without support of the Bitcoin developers. I mean, it's and most of the community, from what I can tell, like we just got Segwit in. Like Segwit took like a year longer than people expected, than the developers expected, and now it's finally in, and there's 10% of Segwit transactions, and it's getting more and more like used, and it's helping with scaling, and it'll eventually help with other things like slower signatures or mass or other things that the developers are working on. So I think we just have to give it a chance to scale, and eventually we may need to do an on-chain scaling like a 2x or whatever, but by then we'll have more time to prepare and everyone will be on board and we'll have consensus. But it's not like forcing it in 3 months to do a 2x split or 2x hard fork. I think that's just crazy.
Okay. Then we're going to ask about questions about the hard fork and soft fork. Do you think do you have any intrinsic preference for like which is the better method to network upgrade?
Which is a better method? Well,
Yeah.
soft forks are definitely better to do, right? It's safer, right? You can like everybody, you can upgrade without forcing everybody to upgrade their nodes, right? So with Segwit, if you're excuse me, if you're running an old version client, it still works. You won't be kicked off the network. You won't kind of fork into a different network. So that's nice. And with Segwit, all these new technology can actually be enabled with a soft fork. So I think that's very cool. So hard fork, yeah, I obviously prefer soft forks over hard forks. But if we need to do a hard fork, it needs to really be planned. It needs to have consensus. It needs to be planned ahead of time, right? Mm-hmm. Like at least 6 months, if not a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you, so like we were just talking about, core devs and how like right now the devs are definitely not on board with 2x, but how do you, another thing is like when it comes to developer centralization, how do you secure, I think any project needs to figure out a way to secure core dev talent. So for you, what would incentivize someone to contribute to Litecoin as opposed to Bitcoin?
What do you mean?
Like, I guess I'm saying like, in some ways it makes like everybody that's contributing to Bitcoin, like the Bitcoin core dev, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's the biggest project, it's the most robust, the ecosystem is just so much better, like the documentation, everything's on point compared to other projects. But like in the case of like Litecoin, like I don't really know like which Litecoin core devs are the ones that's making noise and whatnot. So how would you get more talent on board, or how would you get people who are exceptional coders to help develop Litecoin? Do you do anything about it, or are there any strategies that someone can employ?
Yeah, I think well, the nice thing is that we keep very close to Bitcoin, so a Bitcoin core dev is effectively developing for Litecoin also. They just don't know it. And they can't do anything about it. They can they're working on stuff that would help Litecoin and they just can't do anything about it. That's open source for you. So we have a Litecoin foundation right now, and we're raising funds, and we want to put that funds towards like paying like developers. We've hired a full-time Litecoin developer, and we're potentially going to hire or like subsidize a developer to work on both Bitcoin and Litecoin, right? So I think we just want we want both to succeed. So whoever's working on like code, it can help both. It will help both Bitcoin and Litecoin, and potentially it will first be like put live on Litecoin to help test it. And that's the idea, right? So it's not like someone is a Litecoin developer and focus solely on Litecoin, because whatever we do with Litecoin, we still want that to go into Bitcoin eventually, right? So and vice versa, people who are working on Bitcoin may have their code first go live on Litecoin. So there's and also it's harder to like you said, like people want to work on Bitcoin, right? Like Litecoin, it's like why would you work on Litecoin to work on something that only helps Litecoin, right? So like I think it's important to have crypto developers work on the core code, and that would help both Bitcoin and Litecoin.
Okay. So far, I think the Litecoin and Bitcoin has a lot of technologically, they're really, really similar. Is there any possibility that it might diverge at some point in terms of like technologies that?
Yeah, it's possible. Like one thing where we've looked at is adding more of a color coin type of technology to Litecoin, and this is something that Bitcoin may not add. So there's trade-offs, right? If we do that, yes, Litecoin would have something that is kind of that it has that Bitcoin doesn't, but then the code would be harder. Like it's gonna diverge and it's gonna get a bit messy, right? So how much do we diverge from Bitcoin? It's a compromise, right? It's a trade-off. We'll see if that makes sense on a case-by-case basis. But right now we're sticking very close to Bitcoin, and yeah, when we activated SegWit, there was a possibility that Bitcoin won't activate SegWit, right? Like never, right? Activate SegWit. If that happens, we will be very different from Bitcoin. And we took that risk because we thought it was worth the risk, or at least I definitely thought it was worth the risk to prove that SegWit works and help Bitcoin activate SegWit also. And it happened. So now our code base is back to in sync, which is nice.
I think Litecoin's one of the nicest thing about Litecoin is being that it's a small brother to Bitcoin. Like, you know how like the small brothers don't make all the mistakes that the big brother makes, and you don't step in the same pothole. It's like you guys are doing that, and also just there's a very deliberate, you know, like you said, silver to Bitcoin's gold. That's a very deliberate marketing strategy. And do you have any marketing strategy for how, you know, like the market's moving right now from China over to Korea and Japan? Do you have any like strategies for trying to take that momentum with you?
For Litecoin or for what?
For Litecoin.
Can you kind of rephrase that question?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'm asking like, are you collaborating with anyone in Korea, or are there like any plans you have to try to penetrate the market in Korea and Japan?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is exchanges, right? Exchanges is always the first step. So one of the reasons why Litecoin was so successful is because the Chinese exchanges all added Litecoin pretty quickly. I think just the silver to gold analogy helped. Also, maybe the creator being Chinese, yeah, helped a bit. So that definitely helps. So one of my goals is to get more Korean exchanges and Japanese exchanges to support Litecoin, right? To trade Litecoin, and it's definitely it's gonna take some more work. Like right now in Korea, I think only BitThumb trades Litecoin, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I recently talked to Coin1 about it, and they might be interested in doing it. What's your other exchange?
Corbit.
Corbit, yeah. Corbit. I guess I'll try to talk to them about it too. So it would be cool if all of the big three exchanges trade Litecoin, and also for Japan, Bitflyer is trading Litecoin. I'm not sure which other ones are, but yeah, we definitely want to work on that, because like once you have exchanges that trade your coin, it's much easier for people to get into Litecoin, and then people can realize how useful it is. But exchange is definitely the first step.
Okay. How about the smart contract functionalities, like implementing smart contract functionality on top of Litecoin, just like Rootstock does on Bitcoin?
Well, Rootstock is also going to work with Litecoin. They're focused on Bitcoin, obviously, but they plan to release Rootstock sidechain on Litecoin also. In addition to Rootstock, there are other initiatives like there's initiative to get to deploy masked Merkleized abstract syntax tree on Bitcoin and Litecoin. Johnson now has a smart crypto vault project that is basically adding masked and some other features to add more smart contract abilities to Bitcoin and Litecoin. I think those will come along next year, and I'm pretty excited about those.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that you wrote the roadmap pretty earlier on this year, and then you've been sticking to it, like you've been sticking to it. You've been doing everything that you said you'll do. So I guess what we have left now is the privacy features. What kind of privacy options are you looking into, and how does it fit into like what you said about payments? Like if Litecoin becomes more of a payment.
Yeah. So, privacy, I see more as a fungibility issue, right? I mentioned this. I've talked about this quite a bit, where I think Bitcoin and Litecoin is almost like perfect form of money, except for fungibility, right? It's one of the properties of money that Bitcoin is not really that good at, because you see the full history of your coins. So adding something to improve fungibility, I think, is very important. And currently what we're looking at is confidential transaction. Right? Confidential transaction is the ability to blind the amount. So you hide the amount from cryptographically, so people don't know how much you're sending. And using that with something like a coin join or a mixer would make it like perfectly private or fungible. And that's something that I really want to add to Litecoin. But it's going to take some time. There's people are still working on making confidential transaction more efficient, like more compact, smaller transaction size.
Okay. So thinking about the Litecoin as a currency. So I mean, do you envision the future where the cryptocurrencies are competing against the fiat currencies, and then it is actually widely used in the world?
I think there's a good, I would hope so. It's gonna take a lot more time. Like right now, cryptocurrency is good as a commodity. It's an asset class, right? People are just investing in it. People aren't really using it, right? It's not it's not a better form of payment method than what we have. Like if you go to a store, you swipe a credit card, takes a second, gets approved, and it's just easy, right? You don't have to pay anything. The store pays the 2 or 4%, whatever it is. If you want to use Bitcoin or Litecoin, you have to like mess around with QR codes, or maybe now it's a little bit better. Maybe there might be like touchless payments, but it's all like it's all a bit harder, right? The store has to accept that you have to have it, and then you have to send payment, and then potentially have to wait for confirmation, which could take a long time. Lightning Network would definitely help in this area, but until it's like really easy to use, it's not gonna be people aren't gonna use it, right? It's a chicken and egg problem kind of. Stores won't accept it because people don't use it. People don't use it because stores don't accept it. But right now, Bitcoin is definitely a good store of value. It's definitely a good asset class because it's appreciating. So right now, people are just investing and speculating in Bitcoin and Litecoin and not really using it. I think it's going to take many more years for people to actually use it. And also, because the value is appreciating so much, it's so volatile, it's hard for people to price anything in Bitcoin or Litecoin without it changing on a daily basis. So until you can say like, an apple is worth however many bits or lights or whatever, and that doesn't change that often, it's really hard to price stuff in the currency. And if you don't price in the currency, it's not really like you're not really expanding that currency, right?
Okay. And then you value you kind of value proposition of the you mentioned that the value proposition of the Litecoin is like a payment for the payment compared to Bitcoin, right? So I think one of the most important question in that case is a scalability. What is your most preferred sort of like the scalability solutions?
Well, I'm definitely a proponent of Lightning Network, right? Lightning Network is going to help Bitcoin and Litecoin scale tremendously. We wouldn't know, we don't know how much it's going to help right now, so it's kind of, we'll see. But I think layer 2 solutions will definitely help Litecoin scale. And Litecoin has 4 times the block capacity than compared to Bitcoin. So it's already 4 times better in terms of scaling, in terms of on-chain scaling. So off-chain would really make it scale that much better.
Okay. I think it's time. You have to catch your flight.
Yeah, I'm flying to Taiwan
Yes, sir.
in a couple hours. So
okay. Charlie, thank you. We got a couple more questions, but
she can shoot. I still have a little bit more time.
okay,
Nothing
yes.
I'll miss.
Okay, just checking. All right, cool. All right. Being that you're the creator developer of Litecoin, like what would you do again if you ever had the chance?
What would you do differently?
Yeah,
probably?
what would you do differently? What would you do differently if you had the chance?
What would I do differently? Like if I'm creating another coin?
If you're allowed to go back in time and create Litecoin one more time, what would you do differently?
I'm not sure I would do anything differently. I might convince Vitalik to join my team and turn Litecoin into Ethereum. Might do that. I've known Vitalik for quite a while, since like the early days. So yeah. So I would have spent time to convince him to instead don't launch Ethereum, just put it on Litecoin.
Do you see value in Ethereum?
Yeah. I mean it's cool. I think decentralized apps has use case. I'm not sure if it will, like these days, like everybody's doing like decentralized this or that. I don't think it can be, it's good for everything, but having a decentralized like a application platform is very useful. But Ethereum is going to have like a much tougher scaling problem than Bitcoin is facing today. So we'll see what happens if their like scaling solutions pan out. And this proof of stake thing I think is a risky proposition.
Okay, you beat us to the punch. Like the next question was going to be about proof of stake. Why is it risky in your opinion?
I mean, you're like changing engines mid-flight, right? Proof of work is tried and tested. It works. Proof of stake is kind of unproven, right? So it's a different security kind of solution for how to secure a blockchain. And with so much money on the line, changing that is risky. Like is it a worthwhile bet? I'm not sure. Like I don't have any Ethereum. I'm not holding any Ethers right now. Mm-hmm. Maybe I guess it's because I actually invested in Ether in the pre-sale because I believed in Vitalik, but I sold it all because I'm not, because it really went up way too fast. So I think it was, and now we're seeing a small correction. So, but I think it's cool. I like Ethereum. Yeah, I did not like their DAO hard fork decision though. I think that was a bad decision. I wouldn't have done that if I were Vitalik.
What would you have done if you were Vitalik at that time?
I would have let it go, like let it be. If the code speaks for itself, right? Someone created a bug in the code, and someone hacked it and stole the money. So, I mean, the code is the truth, right? You basically, whoever the DAO hacker followed the rules of the Ethereum programming language, the Ethereum contracts, right? It's not that they hacked Ethereum itself, they just hacked a contract, right? You see that all the time these days, right? The contracts getting hacked. Like almost every day you hear about a contract getting hacked. And doing that sets a bad precedence. It's even their like webpage today claimed that Ethereum is like you're writing unstoppable apps that can't be censored by a third party. But like it's exactly what the developers and the community did was to censor an app because they lost money, right? Yeah, I didn't like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. You know, like you just mentioned like ICO craze, and you know, there's the whole like raid. This is weird because I mean, there's Raiden, which is very similar to Lightning Network, and even they're doing an ICO. What's your how do you view the ICO landscape nowadays? And even when we've come to this point where projects, I mean, I think it has a different value proposition, maybe, but what do you think about the ICO landscape nowadays?
I've tweeted about it. So like I think it's bad. I think it's bad. I think the problem with ICOs is that the developers get the money right away, so there's less incentive to actually complete and finish the project. So the incentives aren't aligned. So it's an easy way to make money, to like to raise money, but once you have the money, you just don't need to work at it anymore. So I think it's the craze is because people are making money. It's kind of all the ICOs are being pumped and dumped. So it's unfortunate. I think it's gonna backfire. So
yeah, at some point in time, you're one of the coins that's surviving now that didn't start with an ICO, and you mined all the way. But isn't it hard to bootstrap a cryptocurrency if you don't start with some sort of pre-mine or ICO? Or am I just understanding this wrong?
yeah, because you don't have any money, right? So what's incentive for you to continue working on your on your coin? It's also much harder these days to kind of rise above the noise, right? Like if you're creating a new coin, like there's just like thousands out there. Like why would people invest in your coin? So you create some gimmick, you do a lot of marketing, and it's less about technology and more about like marketing. So yeah.
Yeah, one of the problems that the Raiden ICO has touched upon is that so monetizing arguably the core kind of infrastructure, because for the application developers, they can't raise huge amount of money through the ICOs, but the core developers who are focusing more sort of fundamental sort of development of the project doesn't have the much incentive, monetary incentive. So I think there's some fundamental sort of a misalignment of the incentives. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's always tough because yeah, I think like incentivizing core developers on the core protocol is always a tough problem. Like with Bitcoin, you have companies like paying for core developer salaries. You have like Blockstream, Chain Code, and others. And then when that happens, people are like, now Blockstream is controlling core developers, or like, and then there's conspiracy theory, right? But they're just trying to support Bitcoin, right? Yeah. So I think that's a tough problem. I don't think ICO is a way to solve that problem. Because then the incentives are just misaligned. I don't know. Yeah. For Litecoin, like I'm not working for pay because I'm passionate about this project and I made money from my initial investment in Bitcoin and Litecoin. So I'm okay, and I don't need pay for working on Litecoin. But it's hard to find ways to, like, we're raising money by selling things and then using the money to pay for developers, and it's much easier to do an ICO and raising hundreds of $1 millions with nothing than to do what we're doing.
I think top problem is that for you are okay because you got into the development at the early stage, but like for the core developers are coming late. I mean, there's not much incentive for them to contribute to Litecoin, right? Because they don't hold not many like Litecoins as you did.
Yeah, and it's not just holding. I mean, it's like the freeloading problem where people like invest in Litecoin. They don't have to work on Litecoin. Someone else will work on Litecoin and make it successful. Like, people expect me to work on it, to pump it so that they make money, right?
Yeah.
Like if I tweet about Bitcoin and Bcash or whatever, people will be like, you should focus on Litecoin and make me rich. It's not my job to make others rich.
Maybe it is, but
maybe it is.
Yeah. What's the role of the Litecoin Foundation? The Bitcoin, the Bitcoin Foundation was a pretty big flop, in my opinion. But
the Litecoin Foundation is just to help crypto, help Bitcoin, Litecoin, just in general, hire developers to work on Litecoin and Bitcoin. So we just raise funds with selling stuff and spending those funds on hiring developers.
Would you view that as a very rough rudimentary governance system of sorts?
No, it's not really like a governance system. It's just yeah. There's really, well, one thing different about Litecoin is that there's the creator, me, I'm around, right? So I have a lot of influence. I can convince people of my vision, right? Whereas for Bitcoin, there isn't any, or at least Satoshi's not around anymore. So there's no central kind of guidance for Bitcoin. So it's a bit more messy. So I guess that's also why like Litecoin can move a bit faster than Bitcoin. Like if I decide that confidential transaction is something that I want to add to Litecoin, I can convince people to kind of understand my vision and work towards that. Whereas with Bitcoin, like, look at how hard it was to add SegWit. Like, it was hard to add SegWit to Litecoin, but it was a lot easier with Litecoin than Bitcoin.
So what happened, like, when you guys were trying to figure out how to add SegWit? Like, I heard like Shaolin Fry and a whole bunch of people got together and then you guys just decided on it. Like, what was the process like?
I mean, it's kind of
I guess let me clarify the question. It seems like your transition into SegWit was really smooth, and I think that's a model that other cryptocurrencies can maybe learn on when it comes to like reaching consensus. So how'd you guys do it?
It was, I mean, it was smooth in terms of like the community like all wanted it, because like Litecoin wasn't really, the price hasn't moved much, right? It was around $4 for a while, and just adding cool technology to Litecoin is always like, no one's really against that, right? And as developers, we push for it. The community wants it. Miners were against it because they were against it for Bitcoin, so they didn't want to like add it to Litecoin, and then people would be wondering like, why did you add it to Litecoin but not Bitcoin? So that was the hard part, to convince miners to add it to Litecoin. But other than miners, like, everyone else was on board. So yeah.
So what does it require to convince miners? Do you need like fantastic Chinese skills?
Yeah, you need Definitely a bit. You need more you need to talk to the miners. You need to be on their side. They need to be heard, right? You can't just say like do this or you'll be fired. So it takes a bit of work.
Every time I look at Twitter, I feel like there's a Great Wall of China and Firewall of China, and we're growling at each other from across the wall.
Yeah. I think in the divide between is an existence in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, like some of them are due to cultural sort of factors. Do you see, because you are Chinese American, I guess, and then you are familiar with both cultures. So does that help you in any ways to promote the Litecoin or like to
it definitely
better
helps.
understand the ecosystem?
Yeah, it's pretty coincidental that I guess the US and China play such a big part of Bitcoin and Litecoin, and also helps that my brother was or is CEO of BTCC and running a big Chinese exchange. So definitely being Chinese made it easy for me to kind of to understand the culture differences between US and China. There's a lot of miscommunication about between the different communities, the US and Chinese community. So it was pretty interesting what happened. Hey guys, I actually have to run. So
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you
was
so
nice talking to you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charlie. We hope to see you like in person in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, Charlie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Bye.
Okay, internet. That was Charlie Lee.
Oh, we're done.
Yeah, we're done. That was Charlie
was
Lee,
quick.
and thank you everyone for tuning in. Like I said, we're the blockchainers. We're trying to tell everything that's going on in Korea, and also just interviewing different people, asking them questions that you'll find titillating. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, and comment below. And if you ever want to collaborate on a project, we're always open.
Yes, we
For
are.
all years. Anyways, right now is Saturday. It's beautiful sunny Saturday in Seoul, Korea. Hope you have a beautiful day, wherever part of the world you're at, and we'll be signing out.
Oh yeah, that was so good. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, we could